Hello everyone, today I'm going to discuss communication and consultation in a school organization. But before that, I had interviewed some teachers regarding their perspective on the importance of communication and consultation in a school organization. Come, let's take a look.
Communication and consultation are essential skills that any school organization members should develop, practice, and enhance. Can you imagine a school organization that doesn't communicate and consultate their ideas or opinions regarding school or academic matters? School organizations are actually a platform to voice out and to communicate different views and perception of the population they represent.
Communication and consultation brings harmony. Different school organizations have different agenda or missions. Thus, everyone is expected to portray good communication skills to obtain good relationships with one another, leading them to a productive success. Moreover, with the correct protocol of communication, it can carry out the plan easily. Communication and consultation are avenues to fortify camaraderie. School organization is a simple family in a community. They need understanding, they need to be informed, and in the end of the day, we settle all worries and troubles with great communication.
Consultation involves taking account of as well as listening to the views of employees. On the other hand, communication is a two-way process. Information should flow up from subordinates and down from superior. Communication is the lifeblood of every organization. Like in a school, it is a process that links the individual, the group, and the organization. One question here is, why are communications and consultation important in an organization like school organization? Good communications and consultation are central to the school administration process and assume critical importance when dealing with changes in working practices and procedures. All administrators need to communicate and consult with employees in order to be effective, and they also need to exchange information with other heads, which require lateral or interdepartmental communications. Failure to recognize this need may result in inconsistency of approach or application. The following are some points why are communications and consultation important in a school organization. Improve organizational performance. Time spent communicating at the outset of a new project or development can minimize subsequent rumor and misunderstanding. Improve administration performance and decision making. Allowing employees to express their views can help school administrators arrive at a sound decisions which can more readily be accepted by employees as a whole. This may be particularly important at the times of emergency or where new practices or procedures are being introduced. Improve employees' performance and commitment. Employees such as teachers and staff will perform better if they are given regular and accurate information about their jobs, such as updated technical instructions, targets, deadlines, and feedback. Their commitment is also likely to be enhanced if they know what the school organization is trying to achieve and how they, as individuals, can influence decisions. Help develop greater trust. Discussing issues of common interest and allowing employees to express their views can create improved superior and subordinate relations. Help develop greater trust. Discussing issues of common interest and allowing employees to express their views can create improved superior and subordinate relations. Increase job satisfaction. Employees are more likely to be motivated if they have a good understanding of their job and how it fits into the school organization as a whole, and are actively encouraged to express their views and ideas. Encourage a more flexible school working environment. Administrators can help to promote a good working-life balance within the school organization by talking to all their staff about developing flexible working policies and practices. Communication process involves the exchange of information between a sender and a receiver. This figure depicts the key components of the communication process, which involve a sequence of 8 steps. Barriers to communication can occur at any step in the process, but most frequently occur between transmission and reception. Step 1 is to develop an idea that the sender wishes to transmit. Senders in a school district can be central office administrators, faculty members, and departments within a school. Administrators communicate with other administrators, subordinates, students, the Board of Education, and the members of the community. Faculty members communicate with administrators, staff, students, parents, and the community. Communications within the school district are important ways coordinating the tasks of superintendents, supervisors, principals, and teachers. Communications within school buildings help coordinate the work of faculty and staff. School districts communicate with employees at all levels, unions, the community, the school board, local government, and the state. Step 2 is to encode or to convert the idea into words, nonverbal cues, diagrams, or other symbols of transmission. Meaning cannot be transmitted because it lies in the significance that the encoder attributes to the symbol. The receiver of the message will also assign meaning to that symbol. The greater the agreement between the sender and the receiver regarding the meaning of the symbols, the greater the probability of understanding between the two parties. It is important, therefore, that school administrators select symbols that have mutual meaning for them and their intended receivers. Once the message is developed, step 3 is to transmit it. In transmitting, you may use several methods such as memoranda, telephone calls, or face-to-face communication. Unintended messages such as silence or inaction on particular issues are not as obvious, and such nonverbal cues as hand gestures, body position, facial expression, and voice intonation also communicate messages. Step 4 is to receive. The transmission allows another person to receive a message, which is step 4. The receiver needs to be a good listener if the message is oral. If the message is written, the receiver must be attentive to its stated and implied meaning. Step 5 is to decode the message so that it can be understood. Because meaning cannot be transmitted, it cannot be received. Therefore, receivers must take transmitted messages and give meaning to them. Barriers to communication can occur at any stage of the communication process, and sometimes they can occur during the decoding step. Step 6 is to accept or reject. When the receiver has obtained and decoded the message, that individual has a choice to accept or reject it. Some factors affecting acceptance or rejection of the message involve the authority and credibility of the sender. Also, the sender's persuasive skills, the implications for the receiver, and the receiver's perception of the accuracy of the message. Step 7 in the communication process is for the receiver to use the information. The receiver can ignore the communication, store it for possible action later, or do something with it. Step 8 is feedback. The receiver should give feedback to the sender that the message was received and understood. Feedback completes the communication cycle. Nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is the way we stand, the distance we maintain from another person, the way we walk, the way we fold our arms and wrinkle our eyebrow. Our eye contact, being late in the meeting, conveys messages to others. However, we need not to perform an act for nonverbal communication to occur. The four kinds of nonverbal communications are kinesics, prosemics, paralanguage, and chronemics. They are important topics for a school administrator attempting to understand the meanings of nonverbal signals from organization members. Kinesics is the study of body movements, including posture. Body movements or kinesics includes gesture, facial expression, eye behavior, touching, and any other movement of the limbs and body. Gestures reveal how people are feeling. People tend to gesture more when they are enthusiastic, excited, and energized. On the other hand, people tend to gesture less when they are demoralized, nervous, or concerned about the impression they are making. Facial expressions convey a wealth of information. The particular look on a person's face and movements of the person's head provide reliable cues as to approval, disapproval, or disbelief. Smiling, for example, typically represents warmth, happiness, or friendship, where areas frowning conveys dissatisfaction or anger. However, smiling can be real or false, interpreted by differences in the strength and length of the smile, openness of the eye, and symmetry of expression. Eye contact is a strong nonverbal cue that serves four functions in communication. Eye contact regulates the flow of communication by signaling the beginning and end of conversation. It also facilitates and monitors feedback because it reflects interest and attention. Also, eye contact conveys emotion. Touching is a powerful vehicle for conveying such emotions as warmth, comfort, agreement, approval, reassurance, and physical attraction. Generally, the amount and frequency of touching demonstrate closeness, familiarity, and degree of liking. It should be noted that men and women interpreted touching differently. Concerns about sexual harassment and sexism have greatly limited the use of touching in the workplace. Posture is another widely used cue as to a person's attitude. For example, leaning toward another person suggests a favorable attitude toward the message one is trying to communicate. On the other hand, leaning backward communicates the opposite. Also, standing erect is generally interpreted as an indicator of self-confidence, while slouching conveys the opposite. Prosemics is the way people perceive and use space, including seating arrangement, physical space, and conversational distance. For example, how close do you stand to someone in a normal conversation? Seating arrangements is another aspect of prosemics. You can seat people in certain positions according to your purpose in communication. To encourage cooperation, you should sit the other person beside you, facing the same direction. To facilitate Direct and open communication sit the other person at right angles from you. This allows for more honest disclosure. Edward Hall, an anthropologist, suggests that there are definable personal space zones. Intimate zone. To be disclosed, we must have an intimate association with the other person or be socially familiar. Personal zone. Within this zone, we should be fairly well acquainted with the other individual. Social zone. In this zone, we minimally acquainted with the other person and have a definite purpose for seeking to communicate. Most behavior in the business world occurs in this zone. Public zone. When people are more than 12 feet away, we treat them as if they did not exist. We may look at others from this distance provided our gaze does not develop into a stare. Paralanguage consists of variations in speech such as voice quality, volume, tempo, pitch, non-fluencies such as using or laughing. People make attributions about the sender by deciphering paralanguage cues. Aspects of speech such as pitch, volume, voice quality, and speech rate may communicate confidence, nervousness, anger, or enthusiasm. Intelligence is often judged by how people speak. Chronemics is concerned with the use of time, such as being late or early, and other relationships between time and status. For example, being late for a meeting may convey any number of different messages, including carelessness, lack of involvement, and lack of ambition. Yet, at the same time, the late arrival of high-status persons reaffirms their superiority relative to subordinates. Their tardiness symbolizes power or having a busy schedule. Non-verbal behaviors to enhance your leadership image. People who are self-confident speak and write with assurance. They also project their leadership image through various nonverbal cues. Following are some suggestions. 1. Maintain eye contact and smile at those with whom you speak. 2. Stand and sit erect. Do not slouch. 3. Do not cower when confronted. Stand up straight. 4. Nod your head to indicate that you are listening when someone is speaking to you. 5. Be neat, well-groomed, and wear clean, well-tailored clothes. 6. Use hand gestures in a relaxed, non-technical manner. Direction of communication. The purpose of organizational communication is to provide the means for transmitting information essential to goal achievement. Much of this communication flow is carried in 4 distinct directions: downward, upward, horizontal, and diagonal. The other major communication flow is the grapevine. Downward communication. Hierarchical systems like large school districts tend to use downward communication, in which people at higher levels transmit information to people at lower levels. For example, the school district superintendent might instruct the assistant superintendent to prepare for a new personal evaluation system mandated by the state. In turn, the assistant superintendent would provide specific instructions to the principals who would inform the teachers accordingly. Downward communication is necessary to help clarify the school district's goals, provide a sense of mission, assist in indoctrinating new employees into the system, inform employees about educational changes impacting the district, and provide subordinates with data concerning their performances. Upward communication. Upward communication also follows the hierarchical chart and transmits information from lower to higher levels in the organization. For example, a teacher might conceive of a new course in TLE studies. The teacher would pass this information upward to the department head, who would in turn pass the information to the immediate supervisor, who would then inform the superintendent. Upward communication is necessary to provide administrators with feedback on downward communication, monitor decision-making effectiveness, gauge organizational climate, deal with problem areas quickly, and provide needed information to administrators. For several reasons, upward communication is difficult to achieve. Upward communication is usually subject to filtering and distortion. One research recommends 4 practices to improve upward communication. Employee meetings. These meetings attempt to probe job problems, needs, and administrative practices that help and hinder subordinate job performance. These meetings, sometimes referred to as quality circles, provide feedback to administrators and encourage subordinates to submit ideas to supervisors. An open door policy is a statement that encourages subordinates to walk in and talk to administrators. Generally, however, subordinates are encouraged to see their immediate supervisors first. Then, if their problem is not resolved at that level, they are free to approach higher level administrators. Bringing a problem to one's immediate supervisor first should alleviate resentment among administrators who are bypassed when subordinates skip several administrative levels in the hierarchy. Employee letters. Programs that use employee letters or suggestions serve as a type of written open door policy. This direct and personal method provides subordinates with the opportunity to present their ideas to administrators. To increase the effectiveness of these procedures, submissions can be anonymous. All submissions must be answered and replies must be delivered without delay. Participation in social groups. This method provides excellent opportunities for unplanned upward communication. Information at these activities is shared informally between subordinates and superiors. Examples include departmental parties, sports events, picnics, golf outing, and other employer-sponsored activities. Horizontal communication. Horizontal communication takes place between employees at the same hierarchical level. This type of communication is frequently overlooked in the design of most organizations. Integration and coordination between units in an organization is facilitated by horizontal communication. For example, at the upper levels of a school district, the assistant superintendent and the personnel will coordinate their efforts in arriving at an integrated strategic plan for the district. In a high school, meanwhile, the department heads will work together in developing a curriculum for the entire school. Diagonal communication. Diagonal communication is important in situations in which participants cannot communicate effectively through other channels. For example, the assistant superintendent for business of a large urban school district may wish to conduct an instructional program cost analysis for each high school. One part of the analysis involves having each high school principal send a special report directly to the assistant superintendent for business rather than go through channels of assistant superintendent. Thus, the flow of communication would be diagonal rather than vertical, downward or upward. In this instance, diagonal communication minimizes the time lag in securing the needed data. The grapevine. When the shortcomings of the 4 types of organizational communication become apparent, employees build their own channels of communication, which is grapevines. The grapevine has both positive and negative features. Communication network patterns are structures in which communication flows in an organization. They are the communication links in work teams according to the organizational structures. The patterns are related to work efficiency and who is responsible towards whom or who talks to whom. The five network patterns that frequently used are wheel, chain, Y, circle, and star pattern. A network is a two-level hierarchy. It is the most structured and centralized of the patterns because each member can communicate with only one other person. For example, a superintendent of schools and those who are his immediate subordinates, which are assistant superintendent for business, for instruction, for personnel, and assistant to the superintendent, probably form a wheel network. The superintendent is A, and his assistant superintendents are B, C, D, and E, respectively. The four subordinates send information to the superintendent, and the superintendent sends that information back to them, usually in the form of decisions. Chain network ranks next highest in centralization. Only two people communicate with one another, and they in turn have only one person to whom they communicate. Information is generally sent through such a network in relay fashion. A typical chain network would be one in which a teacher, which is B, reports to the department head, which is C, who in turn reports to the principal, which is A, who reports to the assistant superintendent for instruction, which is D, who reports to the superintendent, which is E. Y network is similar to the chain network except that two members fall outside the chain. For example, two assistant principals, which is A and B, report to the principal, which is C. The principal in turn reports to the assistant superintendent, which is D, who reports to the superintendent, which is E. Circle network is a three-level hierarchy. It is very different from the wheel, chain, and Y networks. It is symbolic of horizontal and decentralized communication. The circle gives every member equal communication opportunities. Each member can communicate with persons to their right and left. Members have identical restrictions, but the circle is a less restricted condition than the wheel, chain, or Y networks. For example, the circle network has more two-way channels open for problem solving than the four channels of the aforementioned networks. In the circle network, everyone becomes a decision maker. Star network is an extension of the circle network. By connecting everyone in the circle network, the result is a star or all-channel network. The star network permits each member to communicate freely with all other persons. The star network has no central position and no communication restrictions are placed on any member. A committee in which no member either formally or informally assumes a leadership position is a good example of a star network. Barriers to communication. Frames of reference. If the communicators have different frames of reference, communication is likely to become distorted. For example, people raised in different cultures may react quite differently to the same message. Filtering. Filtering involves the transmittal of partial information by the sender. Structure. The reason is fairly simple. The more levels of administration through which a message must be transmitted, the greater the danger that it will be changed, modified, shortened, amended, or misinterpreted, or will totally fail to reach its receiver. Information overload. Information overload occurs when the amount of input to a system exceeds its processing capacity. Semantics. Semantics can be a communication barrier because of the misinterpretation of the words. Status differences. People often have difficulty navigating status differences when trying to inform or persuade others. Status differences can create a bias against those with the perceived lower status. To overcome some of the communication barriers, the following are some communication skills that might means of improving school district communication. Repetition. Repetition involves sending the same message over and over again, using multiple channels like telephone calls, face-to-face discussion, memorandum, or letter. Empathy. For example, a school administrator should figuratively walk in the shoe of the subordinate and attempt to anticipate personal and situational factors that might influence the subordinate's interpretation of the message. Understanding. For example, school administrators must remember that effective communication involves transmitting understanding as well as the messages. School administrators must encode messages in words and symbols that are understandable to the receiver. Feedback. Feedback ensures effective communication and determines the degree to which a message has been received and understood. Listening. Successful communication requires effective listening on the part of both the sender and the receiver. Listening is an active process that demands a great deal of concentration and effort.